Hi knitting friends, Shaina Bilow here. In today's video, I am going to talk about how to decrease on sleeves when you're working a top-down sleeve. So often these sleeves will be done in the round. Here I'm showing two flat sleeves so you can get a sense of what the decreases look like. On sleeve A, I've worked my decreases at each side of the row, as your pattern will typically ask for. They'll say decrease 1 stitch at each edge of the row, or if you're working in the round, it will say decrease 1 stitch on each side of the marker. Some patterns are very specific about how they want you to decrease, and others are a little more vague, open-ended. So down below, I've got for you, both for sleeve A and sleeve B, worked flat and in the round, how you can achieve these different looks. So you'll see here with sleeve A, I worked 2 stitches at the edge, at the beginning and the end, and then worked the decreases inside of them. Same on sleeve B. There are 2 stitches here on the selvage, and then 1 decrease within those 2 stitches inside of the sleeve. All right, and you can see the difference here. So with sleeve A, I have a bit of a defined line where I work the SSK at the beginning and the knit 2 together at the end of the row. That line moves inward towards the sweater and creates a nice smooth finish. Whereas with sleeve B, I also have a subtle line here, but the decreasing itself is a little more subtle in general. It's a little harder to see that line. And so this is just a matter of preference. Again, you decide what you like, and down below I've written out how those work. But let's look at how sleeve A would come together in a seam. So you can see that a little better. And we'll also look at how sleeve B would come together in a seam. So once these were either seamed or, if you're working in the round, this would be what the finish looks like on either of these 2 sleeves. It's a very subtle difference. Here with sleeve B, there is a bit more of a gap because you're kind of fighting against the line, against the shape that the sleeve wants to take, but it's lovely and subtle. Whereas on sleeve A, you are flowing with the line, with the shape that the sleeve is moving in, that it's decreasing, so it's more defined. So again, personal preference here. I will demonstrate for you how to work an SSK and a knit 2 together, but before I do, I want to show you how to read a decrease pattern for a sleeve. So this here is an excerpt from a pattern that I've written that will help you understand how patterns are written. So work a decrease round on the next round and every following, depending on your size, 10th, 8th, 8th, 6th, etc. round, for a total of how many ever decrease rounds depending on your size. In this pattern, I did happen to write out how I expect those decrease rounds to be done. Sometimes a pattern will say something like decrease 1 stitch at each edge of the row, or decrease 1 stitch on each side of the marker. But basically, again, you are decreasing 1 stitch at each edge. So my decrease rounds have an SSK and a knit 2 together. So I'm decreasing 2 stitches on that round. But a question that commonly comes up for my students, when a pattern says work a decrease round on the next round, so we'll assume we've done some part of the pattern before that. Maybe we've knit an inch or 2, and now we're ready to decrease on the next round. So we'll call that round 1. And then often my students will say to me, okay, well now they're asking me to decrease every 8th round. Let's pretend we're doing the 3rd size here. 14 times for a total of 14 decrease rounds. So what does that mean? Am I decreasing on row 8? Am I decreasing on every, what number do I increase on or decrease on? And so on the next round would be round 1 is our first decrease round. And then every 8th round from there would be round 9, round 17, round 25, round 33, etc. Okay, so it's every 8th round from the initial round. It's not on every round number 8. It's on the 8th round until you've done 14 total times. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 decrease rounds so far. You would keep going until you hit the 14 total decrease rounds, etc. So that is how you follow the numbers for your patterns when they ask you to decrease at a certain interval. Finally, I'd like to demonstrate how to work a knit two together and an SSK, and I do have other videos for these if you'd like even more thorough explanations, but I'll do my best here. So a knit two together is putting your right hand needle into 2 stitches at once and knitting them together into one. So we're subtracting a stitch here. We're turning 2 stitches into one, and this decrease leans towards the right. If you're having trouble getting into those stitches, I often find pulling down on the fabric below them helps open them up so you can get inside of them much more smoothly. All right, so that's the knit two together. The SSK, I'm just going to move a few stitches away. The SSK is worked like so. And there are a few different schools of thought on this. I'll show you mine. But I like to slip my stitches knitwise. So I take my right hand needle and I'm going to slip the stitch from the left hand needle over as though I were about to knit it. So my needle is going up the stitch and I slide it over. And I'm repeating that on the second stitch. So I have 2 slipped stitches here. So S, S, and then the final step of the slip, slip, knit is the knit. And we're going to knit these 2 stitches that we just slipped together. So I'm going to insert my left hand needle from left to right into those 2 stitches, wrap my yarn around, and come through. That subtracts 1 stitch, so I've turned 2 into 1, and it slants towards the left. Happy knitting!